Thank you, and thank you, John, and thank you, Al Gonzalez, for your service. You're a tough act to follow, so I'm going to do my best. So, I had a brother, Richie, 3 years younger than me. Growing up, and he was always 3 years younger than me. That never changed. I always thought that was going to change. He stayed 3 years younger than me our whole lives. Growing up, we weren't all that close, but as I got into my late teens and adulthood, we became pretty much best friends all our lives. But the thing is, we were complete opposites. I was blasé, kind of boring, and just mediocre at everything I did. Richie was very passionate and excelled at everything he did. I did not drink, do drugs, or cut school, or smoke cigarettes. Richie experimented with drugs, and for the first 3 months of 11th grade, never went to school. He went bowling instead, became a really good bowler. So it was decided that he should drop out of school, and he gets a job as a messenger for a title insurance company. So clearly I was worried about what direction his life was going to take, where he was going to wind up. But the thing is, all I had to do was let Richie be Richie. Because 10 years after taking this job as a messenger, the Chrysler building in New York was sold. Maybe the most expensive real estate deal ever at the time. And Richie was the guy they sent to that closing. So here's your dropout, and here he's going to the most expensive deal ever. But as was his pattern, he would get very interested in something, really master it and reach unbelievable heights, like closing the Chrysler building. But then he would shortly get burned out and would just kind of never do it again. And he would find something else to master. So shortly after the Chrysler building, he decides that he's burnt out on title insurance. He goes to New Mexico to visit a friend, and he takes a job working in an animal shelter. I thought it was a mistake. In New York, he was making well into 6 figures closing titles. In New Mexico, he was cleaning dog shit and making $6 an hour. Who does that? But eventually, he was practically running the place in New Mexico. In 2000, I had my son, Jason, who's in the audience, and Richie came back to New York to get to know his nephew. And I should say, while he was in New Mexico, he discovered his latest and real passion, and that passion was never going to end, and that passion was community theater. He loved all aspects there was to do about community theater, and he mastered all of them. Where Richie was, he was very talented. He wasn't good at everything. For one thing, he never filed or paid real income taxes. He never got caught. It's Richie being Richie. I don't know, he never got a letter, never got a phone call. I'm thinking of trying it, but I'm a little nervous about it. The other thing he wasn't good at was his diet. He didn't watch what he ate. He got adult onset diabetes, and even after that, he didn't watch what he ate. So one day, he gives me a call, and he tells me he's in Long Island Jewish Hospital. They're about to amputate all the toes on his right leg, and depending upon what they find, they may have to amputate his right leg from the knee down. Rush to the hospital. I get there in time for a meeting with the surgeon and Richie, the three of us. And Richie says to the guy, he says, "Doc," and yeah, he called him Doc. He called everybody else Chief, but he called this guy Doc. He said, "Doc, take off my toes, I don't care. But you do not have permission to take off my leg. I would rather die than live as an amputee." Okay. So they go to the operating room, I go to the waiting room. 2 hours later, the surgeon finds me and he says, "The leg has to come off or he's going to die. There's just no question about it." He says, "Right now he's heavily medicated. I can't ask him what to do. You're his next of kin, meaning me. If you tell me to take off his leg, I'll go in there and I'll do it right now." So John asked me not to curse, so I'm not going to curse, but you know, what do you do here? Do you go against his wishes, authorize the operation and save his life? Or do you not authorize the operation and possibly watch him die? So it was like the longest 15 minutes of my life. I called a few friends, and since Richie was the least wishy-washy person I ever knew, and since he made his wishes clear, I said, do not authorize, do not do the amputation. So he's in the hospital for a few days, and there's a stream of his friends, my friends, the nurses, everybody's trying to convince him to have the operation, to go ahead and live. On day 2, I'm leaving the hospital at night, and I get a call from a cousin Mark, who lives in California. Mark says to me, "What happened?" And I tell him, just like I told you. And Mark says to me, "If Richie dies because you didn't save him, come to New York, find a gun, and I'm going to kill you." Oh. And he was dead serious. Excuse the pun, but yes, he was dead serious. So I was a little rattled about that. 4 days later, Richie, on his own, decides to have the operation, which was the best thing that could the best turnout it could be, because he was very proactive in the prosthesis, learned to drive with his left leg, and he had like the best 8 years of his life doing community theater and excelling in all phases of it. One Saturday night he goes to sleep, never wakes up, passes away in his sleep. Died of an enlarged heart. So they have the funeral. One of his actor friends ends a eulogy by saying, "Let's give Richie a standing ovation." And we did for 5 minutes. Other than my son being born, the most emotional 5 minutes of my life. And that's pretty much my story about my brother and me, but I'll just say 4 things to wrap it up real quickly. They wound up naming a theater after him in Lakeland, Compton, the Richie Applebaum Theater, which was there for like 4 years. Like I said, he excelled at everything. I miss him all the time. I miss him every day and think about him all the time. Number 3, I think I made the right decision, because I think if he woke up with the amputation, I think he would have curled up and died. And 4, to cousin Mark, go screw yourself.